Hello, I'm Melanie Bunn. I am a registered nurse, a nurse consultant, and a dementia training specialist. And Dementia Alliance of North Carolina invited me to do this program before the vacation season starts to talk a little bit about travel. Some of y'all are like me, are ready to go anywhere, to do anything with anybody. I mean, that is one of the hugest losses. I need to go somewhere. And some of you are like, not so sure. So let's talk about travel, specifically when it comes to doing travel with people living with dementia, with your person living with dementia. So let's start by the most important questions, the critical screening questions are: should we go or should we not go? Should we go? Should we not go? And there are lots of sub pieces to that. So one of the sub pieces to that is, who are we going for? Why are we going? Are we going for the person living with dementia? Are we going for us? Are we going for family expectations? Are we going for the expectations of others? Why are we going? Who are we traveling for? Why are we traveling? And does it make sense to do this now? Now, I'm not going to dig in a lot with COVID because COVID's COVID and COVID changes things, except to say that COVID does have impact on travel. It does have impact on how you travel and what some of the parameters are for travel. So keep that in the back of your mind. We've done some videos on COVID as well. You might want to go check some of those out for some of the strategies about managing COVID kinds of things. But we're not going to spend this bit of time talking so much about COVID. We're going to spend this bit of time talking about travel and how do you do it once you decide to do it. So when you're making that decision, should we do it, should we not do it, it's kind of like an investigation. Where are we going? Are we going to somewhere that's really familiar, or are we going to somewhere that's brand new? It makes a difference. Not to say that you can't go to somewhere brand new or you should only go to somewhere familiar, or not even saying that you should go to familiar instead of brand new, but have that conversation, have that deliberation, that consideration to really think about, where should we go, and is this a good trip to do with the person living with dementia? Think about who's going. So are we going to be with people who are familiar, who have reasonable expectations, who know what the person living with dementia needs and wants, and have the ability to adapt and respond to changing abilities and changing situations? Or are these people who don't get it? Are they people who get it or people who don't get it? How many people should we have? Because maybe we don't want to do this trip all by ourselves, but maybe we don't want to do this trip with 47 other people on this bus that doesn't stop for anything except the schedule routines. When are we going to travel? Are we going to travel during the summer when there are lots of people traveling? We're going to look at the weather. Those are things you consider anyway, and considering them when dementia is going to be along for the trip, definitely something to think about. And the last question that comes to my mind really quickly is, how are we going to travel? Are we going to go by car? Are we going to go by train? Are we going to go on a bus trip? Are we going to fly? And there's no rights or wrongs or yeses or nos in this situation. There can be rights and wrongs and yeses and nos for your specific situation, but generically any of those things are on the table. So let's talk a little bit about some general tips. So I'm a real fan of having IDs for the person living with dementia, for the care partners that link them together. There are a variety of devices that have, contact this number if this person gets separated. If there's an accident, this is the next person in line. There are resources for making those kinds of connections and identification. So seek those out. One little tip I give people is to take a photograph every time the person living with dementia changes clothes. Because if you're trying to remember, if you do get separated, and that's one of the biggest concerns about travel, is getting separated in strange, unusual, different kinds of places. If you do get separated, you've got a picture of that person today, that may make a difference. Because if I'm mom and this is what I look like in the morning, and then I later on the day it gets hot and I do this and I put on a different sweater, I'm going to look really different. This Melanie looks really different from this Melanie. So have that current picture, whatever that person changes the way their hair is or changes clothes. And with camera phones, it's not a big deal to do that, but keep that current in the moment kind of chair. Maybe keep a couple of them so you can see, what does mom look like with their hair up versus what does mom look like with their hair down? What does dad look like with his glasses on, without his glasses? So you can have those real strong identifiers if you should get separated. I really encourage people to take a practice run, to take a dry run. So let's take a day trip. We're thinking about going away for a week and we're going to be staying in hotel rooms. Let's start out, let's take a day trip and see how things go. See how the person does on the train. Maybe not a day trip on a plane, but maybe go to the next station, have lunch, come back. See how that might kind of simulate sitting in your seat, having a lot of noise in the background that might be a train or a plane kind of experience. Maybe, let's go stay in a local hotel, see how the person does in the hotel, see how that works. I encourage people to think about packing for a day or for a moment. So having a day pack or packing for, and we're going to talk a little bit about packing later, but having things organized in, this is your clothes for the day, this is my clothes for the day. If we get everything out of it, it's all there together, it's a really strong visual cue to start exploring, versus if I've got a smaller suitcase I can use for the day, particularly if we're traveling by car. It limits the choices and the options and can take away some of that challenge and conflict. So think about that kind of thing, and thinking about keeping things familiar. So if this is the bag that I usually carry, this is my bag I carry, and it goes across like that, and it's familiar, and it's the one I like, and it's the one I picked out, and I choose it. And because we're going to be gone longer, you want me to carry this bag because that way I can take my stuff and I've got it. That may not work, because I don't see this as my bag. I don't see this as something that, if you try to say me, your bag is in there, well, where's my purse? So maybe I'll carry this bag, but I also need this one to be where it's mine and I can get. So that might be something to think about and consider, are those kinds of familiar. So that might mean familiar clothes, familiar bags, familiar shoes. Maybe not only for the person living with dementia, maybe that's also for that care partner. Because if we've spent time at home, and we usually look like this at home, and now my husband comes and he's all fancied up, that might not work for me. I might not know quite who that person is or what that person wants, or I might really think I know what that person wants, and I might really. So be aware of keeping things familiar, within a range of familiar, because what it comes down to is it more about having the person there, being part of the experience, finding joy and pleasure, or is it more about what we look like? And for most people, it's more important that grandma's there. So if grandma wears tennis shoes to the wedding, we just claim it. And we just embrace that grandma is there and she looks beautiful. So keeping that perspective of what really is the most important thing about this trip. So some tips specifically for car travel. Let's talk a little bit about that. Specific tips for car travel. You've got a link for North Carolina, and my guess is there probably are similar kinds of documents for all of the states. For rest areas that has some symbols on it, and some of those symbols are family rest areas. So family rest areas are important for all of us who travel, and they're more common than they used to be. So one of the big challenges of traveling with someone who's of a different gender than you who has dementia is managing the bathroom. That if I'm traveling with my husband, he's got dementia, I either have to go in the men's room with him, that could be uncomfortable, or he has to come in the women's room with me, also could be uncomfortable. With family or gender neutral bathrooms, it makes a place where we can do what we need to do, and both of us be comfortable. So I encourage, for any kind of travel, but especially car travel, to pack a comfort bag or a busy bag. So what are some of the things that might be in my comfort bag or my busy bag? I might have this sweater, which is really my favorite sweater. I might actually wear this sweater to the wedding, even though it's not a great color and it's kind of ratty. It's soft and it makes me feel safe, and I really like this sweater. So I may need this sweater in my travel bag. I may need familiar snacks in my travel bag. I may need something like familiar lotion. So I might buy one particular scent for my person living with dementia, and we might use it all the time, and we might take plenty of it with us. So in the car on the plane, when things are not feeling quite so comfortable, we've got this, because scents are really one of the strongest ways we actually feel safe. Scents are one of the ways that give us emotional support. So let's use that in that comfort bag, in that busy bag. Also for car travel are things like thinking about, are we going to go straight through, or are we going to stop? Are we going to try to do it in a one shot? Are we going to push through, or are we just going to realize we're going to get to here and stop, and then we're going to go on? That's a little over halfway. That'll work great. Thinking about these things, making these plans, and then realizing they may not work. But you've got your sheet that you printed, or you've got it pulled up on your phone, so you know where the next family rest route is while you're traveling. I think it's often helpful and good planning to have a support person with you if you're traveling distances on a car. It just gives you more flexibility, it gives you more options if you have the person living with dementia in the car with you. You can just run in to get something and come back, or they can run in to get something. You can stay there and have a moment by yourself. And also explore how the locks work. How do the locks work? What makes them work, and how do we make them work well and right is important things about traveling in cars. Tips for air travel, that comfort bag, that busy bag is still going to be important. That's going to be our carry-on. That's going to be the thing that we work with and we manipulate and we can have snacks in there and have things that are familiar in there, and things that we want, that support bag, that busy bag. And for both car travel and for air travel and for train travel and for travel to begin with, we want some of those things in there for the care partner as well. We want that care partner to have the snacks that you like. If you like protein, or if you like carbohydrate, whatever you like. Something, the scent that makes you feel strong and in control. We want those supportive things for you as well. And maybe with plane travel as well, that support person might be worth investing that extra little bit of money for, whether it's somebody who's going on the trip or whether it's somebody there who's just to support you during those flights. I'm also a really big fan, for myself and for people living with dementia, of non-stops. Airports are complicated, and multiple airports are even more complicated. So think about those direct flights. Tips for hotels. For hotels, we're thinking about beds and bathrooms mostly. So think about the kinds of things that make my bed feel like my bed, because my goal is for things to feel familiar. My goal is for things to feel safe. So if you take a moment, take a deep breath, kind of think about the things that make your bed feel like your bed, or your bathroom seem like your bathroom, you're probably going to come up with a couple of really important things. So just take a moment and think about that while I show you a couple of mine. So this is one of my things that makes me feel safe. This is on my bed. I like to put my arm on it. I brought my shoulder a while ago, and this just makes my arm feel comfortable, and it reminds me of my college days. My son is there now. It's UNC. I like the texture. I like the size. This would be really important for me for travel, and a light blanket. So maybe this is a blanket I always use, or maybe this is a really similar blanket to the one I always use. Maybe it needs to be the right one. Maybe it can have some flexibility with that. So thinking about those kinds of things that make sense on the bed, and also thinking about things like which side of the bed do I usually sleep on? How am I used to getting to the bathroom from the bed? So we might even need to sleep at the foot of the bed with our heads, because I'm used to getting out of the bed and going straight to the bathroom, and it's over on that side. So maybe we need to sleep with our heads at the feet so I can get off on that side of the bed and make it to the bathroom. It doesn't really matter if you sleep at the top or the bottom of the bed, you're still going to sleep. Bathroom things are important too. So things like even thinking about taking, again, some of this is going to depend on how many people you're traveling with and how far you're traveling and your mode of transportation. But think about taking bath cloths and towels that look and feel familiar, because those hotel bathroom bath cloths and towels may not feel the same against my skin, and that may be enough for a person living with dementia that it becomes distressing, that this is not right. I don't want that. That's not good. I don't want it. Medications can be the same way, making sure you take the medications the person is used to. You may even need to take them in the ways that the person is used to, because if it's in some little travel thing, that might not work for me. And it may be that this little brown tablet I look at differently than that little white tablet you've picked up somewhere else. So being aware of those kinds of things. And lastly, for the bathroom kinds of things, this. Now, this is the toothbrush I use at home, and it's an electric toothbrush. And this is my travel toothbrush. But if you were to hand the person living with dementia this and say, brush your teeth, you may or you may not get the same reaction as if you hand them this one. So you might say, I don't want to drag that toothbrush around, but it may actually work out being less effort to drag that toothbrush around than it does to take this little one that you have to make into, and then it still doesn't feel exactly right. So thinking about those kinds of things and anticipating those. And while we're talking about things that are similar or different, let's think about some of those other things. Now, this is my keychain that I use at home. It's got a good bit of heft to it. It's got a good bit of weight to it. This is different than this. And so if you think, oh, while we're gone, we'll only take a couple of keys and we'll put them on this springy cordy thing. This may mean keys to me. If you give me this, I don't have my keys. Those aren't my keys. That's not right. So really think about the benefits of saving space, saving time, and balance that with the benefits of things being familiar and making sense and being right for me as a person living with dementia. I'm going to talk a little bit about packing. Now, these are the coolest things ever. These are double zip bags. And so what you can do is you can open up the bag and it expands. And so this bag can actually expand this big, and I can put, I've got a bigger one actually that makes it more impressive. So I can open this bag up with the zipper all the way, and now I've got this bag that I can actually get a good bit of stuff in. I can actually get a good bit of stuff in here. And then when I zip it back up, it actually compresses without needing air compression or a machine or anything. And I can actually, as I zip it up, it kind of compresses it. So I can take more. So maybe I have one of these for myself and one of these for the person living with dementia and one of these for the bathroom. Again, it's the opposite of what I was saying of keep things familiar, and sometimes we try something different at home. We get used to it, see how it works, and see if we can make that work when we're on the trip. So tips for planning the day is the last kind of section we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a good bit about keeping things to the routine, keeping things the way you're used to doing them, thinking about what types of food is the person used to and where are they used to eating and when are the meals that they want, what time of day, how many people do they usually eat with, really thinking about food. Or do we usually just snack with a sandwich during the day? If I have a big meal, I don't think it's time to go to time to go to bed. Is the most important thing about any of these issues, is the most important thing the time, or is the most important thing the order? Because if we get home and it's late, we've been out all day, it's late. If I have a nighttime routine that I'm used to doing, going to bed may not happen until I take my shower and I brush my teeth. I may not be able to settle until I go through those routines. So thinking about, is it the order of things, or is it, it's 9 o'clock, I'm supposed to be in bed? Have a plan, but be willing to change. Now, some of y'all, if I were to talk with you about planning, you would pull out something that looks like this. So I've got my index card box here, or I've got the virtual thing of this, and I've got different colors and they're all marked for different things, and the things that are supposed to be in here are in here. For some of y'all, if I would open up your box, it's not in a few index cards in there, but there are also all kinds of paper clips and all kinds of other stuff in there. Some of you like to plan and like to do it well and do it carefully. If you do, go for it, and be willing to change. Be willing to realize that we had planned to get this far, we're not going to make it there. Be willing to realize I had planned to go to these many places, it's not going to happen. Be willing to be adaptable and change. Have enough resources so you can rotate off and allow for downtime, or so you can think about maybe that person needs some time alone. They can't go do this next activity. So be flexible, be open to adapting, consider changing plans. I've said that the exact same way 3 or 4 or 5 different ways, but every time it really is the same of have a plan and be willing to adapt. And that's the best way to bring about peace in your travel. So I use this word peace when I'm talking about holidays, and it kind of struck me that maybe we can use peace for travel as well. So if you're really interested in this, you can go look at the Peace for the Holidays video, and I'll give you a little more details and specifics. But the P in peace stands for prioritize. What is the most important thing? If the most important thing is that we're at the wedding, then maybe we don't do the dinner the night before. Empathize. What would this experience feel like, seem like for the person living with dementia, with the things that they're seeing and they're hearing and all of the things that are going on? Really be willing to adjust, and we've talked about that a good bit. That might be adjusting time that we do something, that might be adjusting time of day, that might be adjusting how many or how much we do, where we do. The C in peace stands for capture. We've got cell phones, we've got the videos and the photographs at the wedding. We've take those images, be willing to be in those with that person living with dementia. Gather the kids around to be part of that. Take that photograph out on the beach or at sunrise or whatever means the most to you. And the E in peace stands for enjoy. And the enjoy part means letting go of those expectations, letting go of some of that agenda, letting go of some of those roles, and finding that way to build that connection, finding that way to build those memories that you'll treasure and that will become part of family history. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you found some little tip helpful. If you did, let me know. And I look forward to joining with you on future Mondays with Melanie.